Hey everyone, Steven here, and welcome to my little library of horrors. Well, I'm finally feeling a little better after being sick all week, me and my kids. So, for this video, I wanted to review the latest book that I finished. I first heard about this book through the Retro Horror Paperback Art group, when somebody had posted it among a haul they had. The cover and the title right away really caught my attention. It was painted in this photorealistic style that I really enjoy. Has a house on it and everything, so I'm always a big sucker for that. And the title is interesting because when you first see it, you kind of think one thing, but after reading the book, it has a completely different meaning to it. So it really made me look at the book in a different light after reading it. So it's one thing that I really love about the book in general is like it has this what I like to call look at me effect. So for anyone that's not really familiar with what I'm talking about, there was this hip hop artist back in 2017, I believe. His name was XXX Tentacion. And he released this song called Look at Me, and it was, ridiculous and absurd. But, it took the hip hop world by storm. And a couple years later, he released a music video for it. And, halfway through, the beginning of the music video, again, is ridiculous. There's this, obscene stuff going on and just, but it grabs your attention. And then halfway through, it cuts off and jumps to this other song that he has in very serious material in which it talks about, racism and, talking to the youth and things like that. It was fantastic, and he ends it with this really strong poem. And, I think it was just a really genius idea to create this thing to get everyone's attention to look at you and then turn it around and show this deep message you're trying to get across. And I feel like that this book kind of has that effect in a way. And that book is called The Manhood Ceremony by Ross Berliner. Get a look at the cover there. It's really nice. So, The Manhood Ceremony tells the story of 12-year-old Ricky Stern while he's going one morning to deliver the morning paper, and he's approached by this tall, bearded stranger named Arvis. And Arvis promises Ricky this huge adventure with fun and all this stuff, and Ricky being 12 and it being the 70s, stranger danger wasn't a major thing at the time. So Ricky agrees to go along with Arvis, and it's not long before things turn for the worse, and Ricky ends up essentially fighting for his life. And it's a really interesting book in that it's a look at how rampant homophobia was during the 1970s, in which Arvis essentially assaults Ricky, and it's not super graphic. It's disturbing and it's unsettling for sure. But it shows. But after everything happens and time starts to pass, we see that Ricky is starting to discover feelings he didn't realize he had before, and soon is starting to question if he is gay or not. So it really takes a look at how, at the time, homosexuals were looked at as these predators that would, prey on children and things like that. Via Arvis's character, who is incredibly menacing, incredibly dangerous. Like, he's probably one of the most interesting antagonists I've ever come across, where he at times is very aware of what he's doing, but then in other times reverts to almost this childish, I'm looking for approval kind of personality. it's interesting how Arvis and Ricky's relationship changed during the book, where Arvis, comes off as incredibly powerful and menacing and controlling, and Ricky, is obviously terrified for his life. But as the story goes on, Ricky suddenly becomes the dominant one and stands up to Arvis, and Arvis turns into this person looking for approval from Ricky. He wants Ricky to love him. He finds Ricky to be his best friend. So it's like I said, it's Arvis is complicated in where he knows what he's doing is wrong, but in the same sense, it almost seems like that's an expression of his feelings, which is wrong, of course. I'm not condoning Arvis's character at all. He's not a sympathetic character in the least. I think he's interesting. Which brings in our next set of characters, Ricky's parents, which is Edward and Dorothy Stern. And, they're your cliche 70s married couple. Edward is he's a Jewish accountant who feels inadequate and, doesn't have a relationship with Ricky, isn't really in love with his wife anymore. And Dorothy is, a drunk, hates her husband. And, their first interaction we get with them is like Dorothy is calling Edward at his mistress's house. And it almost makes Dorothy's character almost makes me angry, where she because she essentially apologizes for calling him there. And I'm just like, but then I have to think it's the 70s. It was a much different time then. Women weren't really allowed to stand up for themselves in that way, especially because they're higher class. So, but again, what's interesting is with Dorothy's character is as the story goes on, she suddenly becomes more independent. She stops drinking. She tells Ricky how she feels and, sort of becomes almost this badass female character that's just like, I've had enough of being pushed around. And, but near the end, she kind of reverts back a little bit to her old ways, not 100%. So I was kind of disappointed in that, but overall I enjoyed Dorothy's character, where Edward's character never really evolves. He's kind of just this pathetic person throughout, and he's always like, maybe I did the wrong thing in not having a relationship with my son. And, he's almost kind of this woe is me character that I don't really enjoy. But, the next set of characters we get is the police force. So we have this older cop named Mac, whose wife is very sick. And, there is Mike, who is a gay cop, who is in the closet. He was he's an ex-baseball player who quit and joined the force. And like I said, he hasn't come out. Nobody knows. And, they end up partnering up to take on Ricky's case. And, they just have fantastic chemistry together. I really love Mac and Mike's relationship, where they, Mac is this grumpy old cop and Mike is this, kind of quick-witted young cop that's, and they just work well together. Like I said, it sounds incredibly cliche, but they work well together. I really enjoy their conversations. They have a lot of deep moments together. Witty banter. I love their banter together. They're hysterical. And, but they work so well as partners as well. When things get serious, it's clear on the pages that they work really well together. And that's kind of one compliment I want to give to the author overall, is that the story takes place over 48 hours. So essentially he has to cram in a lot of story into a short fictional time period, but he never makes it boring. It never seems stale. Yes, there's a lot of dialogue, but it's always interesting. It's always character developed or character driven. It's Ricky struggling with the feelings that he has. It's Arvis explaining to Ricky why he is the way he is. It's Mac opening up to Mike about his home life. It's Mike opening up to Mac about him being gay. And, when the action happens, it's fantastic. Arvis is terrifying. Like he sort of goes into this blackout state and is almost like this bomb, and you can see the fuse going off in the way the author describes it. And it's just really engaging. It's very engaging. It's not a super flowery prose, but it like I said, it takes you in and makes you feel involved with the scenes. So I really love that about the book. And I think the author did a really awesome job of sort of showing, kind of helping to bring what gay people in the 70s were going through at the time. Like, there's this really intense encounter between Arvis and Mike where Mike, says, I hate you because I have to hide who I am because of what you do, and we're in the same group, essentially, And that was a big thing, is, like I said, homosexual males were seen as predators at the time. So it's like, that's Mike expressing to Arvis, you're the reason I have to hide who I am. And I think that was a really deep message that, was put right in your face, that was being told the whole time. And so, near the end of the book, Ricky is, well, I won't spoil it. But near the end of the book, you start to understand what the Manhood Ceremony is. And essentially, it is what all of the men in these books went through, how they are essentially struggling with being men. Ricky coming to terms with possibly being gay. Edward having a midlife crisis, feeling inadequate. Mac dealing with, the late part of his life, and, with his wife being sick and his son being dead. And then there's, obviously, like I said, there's Mike, who is a younger cop, having to be in the closet and everything. So I think it really encompasses what the title means. Like I said, it has this, almost ridiculous title, but then when you finish the book, you understand that it's actually a really incredibly powerful title. And, overall, I really enjoyed the book. I'm really happy I gave it a chance. I don't know if I would necessarily run out and recommend it as a read to anyone, simply because the content can be pretty disturbing at times. Like, there's 2 scenes that are really uncomfortable, and, it can be incredibly triggering for people. So, if you do decide to check it out, just please be aware there is, forced acts in the book, that aren't incredibly detailed, but there's enough there to be upsetting. But if you can push past that, I think there's a really great character-driven story here with wonderful, intense characters, great scenes, and, I think a really positive message overall. So yeah, if you're ever interested, I would definitely recommend checking out the Manhood Ceremony. I give it a 4 out of 5, honestly. After a long time, it's been about a week and a half since I finished it, and I still think about it. So I would certainly give it a 4 out of 5 from me. Yeah, like I said, definitely check it out if it's something that sounds interesting to you. Not something I'd recommend for everybody, though. But that's going to be it for me today, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out the video, and feel free to drop a like, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.